Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. And this is Hugo, the frightfully upset T-Rex. This was actually a birthday. No, was it birthday gift? Yeah, it was a birthday gift when I got out of hospital the third time, not the last time, but the third time, from my wife. Yeah, it's such a cool little thing. Anyway, Hugo there is frightfully upset. He's got very skinny wrists like me, so but he's quite ferocious. He's got a lovely articulating jaw. Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about Hugo. Actually, what I wanted to have a quick look at was the Instagram. Now, you're probably wondering, what are these pictures? So I typed in at the top, gentlemen, right? And this is what I got. Fancy shoes, people in quite nice suits, flash cars, typical kind of cheesy quotes, that kind of thing. People obviously have tagged gentlemen, and it's quite interesting to see what the modern perception of being a gentleman is. And there's one overarching theme here, and that's got to do with style, which I think, well, from everything I've learned from my uncles, my cousins, my grandfather, and heroes of mine that I consider gentlemen, like Terry Thomas. Expensive watches as well. The problem is here that the emphasis is not on manners, culture, and education, and all the rest of it. But I mean, there's a nice picture of Budapest. I love Budapest, incredible city. If you ever go, incredible, especially its architecture. Anyway, I'm getting off subject. The emphasis here is on aesthetics and possessions, materialism. It's not. I mean, yeah, okay, this I like the outfit and la-di-da-di, but a good suit doesn't make one a gentleman. You can watch all the million videos on how to tie a tie. Just because you can tie a tie doesn't make one a gentleman. It goes far deeper than that. So today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about 5 real life hacks that really make a gentleman. My family all went to Harrow, and they all looked down on Eton, so I'm not talking about snobby things like that. I'm talking about real life things that real people, down to earth, normal people, like you or me, can change your life, can improve your life, and be a real gentleman. Why is Tony Montana in there? How on earth is he a gentleman? Wow, someone's got a very rather confused idea of what a gentleman should be. But as you can see, it's all style, it's all poses, it's all suits and flash cards, and look at these guys sitting around. Yeah, okay, they look cool in their dapper outfits, but are they really gentlemen? When tough times are happening, are they going to stand by your side? Are they going to be loyal friends? Are they going to chat rubbish behind your back? Are they going to gossip? A gentleman doesn't do that. That just because they look like a gentleman doesn't mean they are a gentleman. A bum with loyalty, integrity, and honesty is more of a gentleman than any person that is just well dressed and well groomed, who has no moral fiber in him whatsoever. That's a true gentleman. Anyway, I'm rambling now, but let's roll the intro and actually get on with the video. Okay, hi guys, and welcome to today's show. Today I'm going to be returning to the more wider subject of more kind of gentlemanly subjects, like I first started this channel with. It's got a bit off course with horology, but we do love our wristwatches and timepieces, so it is understandable. Of course, a quick wristwatch check. I'm wearing my lovely Saab. My wife is out, and it's probably the only time, now she's got the Cartier, now it's the only time I can get my hands on it. And she wears it on a black NATO band, which is pretty cool. My wife's into the NATO straps. I wonder where she got that from. But anyway, today we are discussing 5 life hacks, 5 things that I've noticed is gravely missing in today's mainstream culture. Now, as you would have seen on the intro to this particular video, the definition or the understanding by the mainstream culture, especially on social media, of what a gentleman is, how a gentleman should behave, what is expected of a gentleman, how we perceive a gentleman has really kind of lost its touch. Now, I'm not talking about the original definition of the word way back when there was a landed gentry and the aristocracy and the upper classes and all of that, because that, to be honest, these days doesn't really mean anything. What I'm talking about is being somebody of quality, or being somebody more than just skin deep aesthetics. You know, to me, to being a gentleman really means far more than just a well-fitted suit. And that's part of the problem these days, is that with a lot of these style blogs and videos, we think that you put a beautiful suit and some nice shoes and maybe a lovely watch too onto a person, that doesn't make them a gentleman. There has to be, it's only a tiny percentage. It's maybe just the garnishing. I mean, it's the real person inside, somebody that is of quality, of that moral fiber. It is a well-rounded, educated, cultured individual. That's the majority of it, what we don't really see. This video is long overdue, and we could go into the whole subject for countless videos, and I'm sure we will return to this, but I thought today I'd simplify it to 5 things that have really made me personally, assisted me in becoming more of a grown-up, more of a gentleman. And my inspiration for this really comes from Terry Thomas, the comedic British actor Terry Thomas. Those of you familiar with my Facebook group would have seen me posting funny memes with him in. I mean, he's a terrific actor, incredibly talented, very, very funny. And especially in America, he's kind of perceived as that quintessential English gentleman. Now, the irony is that he came from quite humble means, and it was through reading literature, an autodidactic strict regime, being exposed to travel and culture, that he was able to improve himself, to become a real gentleman. Now, he does get stereotyped as playing kind of upper class bounders and cads, and you know, he made a career out of it generally. But him as a person, he was always incredibly, not an intellectual, but incredibly cultured, famous for his good manners, and he's just somebody that personifies being a gentleman. In my opinion, you could all have your own role models, and role models really are integral to our understanding of forming an idea of what a man should be, what they're expected to how they're expected to behave. I have many cousins, uncles, my grandfather, even my father, that I consider just as important, and I've kind of taken little bits from them, little bits of experience. There's no one book you can read or one guide to really assist you. So that's why I came up with these 5 tips that I think will really have helped me in my life. We'll start right at the top, and that is, of course, refining one's taste. I saw this fantastic slogan the other day, and believe it or not, it was for a Tag Heuer watch advert, and the slogan was, "Sophistication and class is all about taste." And that really stuck in my mind, because it's very true, and it's something I've noticed, especially with the more refined, educated members of my family, that their taste is very refined. And it hasn't happened overnight. It's a lifelong experience. It comes from a decade of learning and getting out there and really experiencing the world. And of course, taste itself is very subjective. What is good taste? What is bad taste? You know, some things are painfully obvious, like kitsch, you know. Other things are not so obvious. If we use the metaphor of watches, very little people that will deny the good taste of a Cartier tank watch, but that's taken almost 100 years of people, you know, enjoying it to become that icon. Some things take that long, but of course there's going to be people that don't like it, that like more garish things, but generally simplicity, refinement, more subtlety is always considered a little bit more tasteful. That is a general rule. You look at architecture as a really fantastic example. There's nothing more divisive in taste than architecture. History and culture played a big part of that. You know, the religious differences in Protestant United Kingdom and the Catholic Europe. You know, one was very ostentatious and kind of while the other was more conservative and understated. And then, you know, what happened when the French aristocrats got too big for their boots? They all got their heads lobbed off in the French Revolution. So taste sometimes can get you into trouble. Too much bling can be a bit dangerous. Having said that, I do love a gold watch. What I'm getting at here is that understatement is much more longer lasting. It's usually, you know, the Bauhaus, for example, that started right at the beginning of the century. Very clean, minimalist, classic aesthetic. It's more about function over form, and it's a complete reaction to the Art Nouveau and the Art Deco that was, you know, a little bit more kind of over stylized. There's a very interesting dichotomy and relationship between different styles and tasteful aesthetics, and realizing that is very, very important. And this extends to all things, from music to literature to cinema to food. I mean, quite literally taste in food. It's all something that has to be developed. Your palate in all things has to be developed. And I think that is an integral part of being a gentleman, is to constantly work on that. It's a journey that never ends. You know, there is no absolute supreme refined taste. We will always disagree about you know, cars or paintings or a work of art or whatever it is. It is always subjective, but there has to be an effort to refine that taste. You know, we can't remain the teenage man-child that we were in our earlier lives. We have to kind of make an effort to grow and to accept new things, refine that taste with education, with culture, with exploring this world. And that really is something that I do not see discussed enough in mainstream culture. I mean, it's something that's been a little bit lost. You know, people very much these days are kind of sheep. You know, they're just spoon-fed things. It's really up to you to kind of dig further and to keep learning and to keep being exposed to more things that will elevate your palate and will develop your sense of taste and will help you become more sophisticated. Because, you know, and I'm not talking on a really pretentious intellectual level, but, you know, you can't stay at the same understanding of things all your life. You have to kind of elevate yourself. There has to be that progression. It has to remain constant, and it requires a consistent effort. You don't have to have a lot of money to have good taste, you know. Much of my furniture is from IKEA. The Scandinavians are excellent at it. You know, very understated, simple things, elegant things that are functional, not too expensive. We don't all have to have Betty Joel furniture and Eames chairs, you know. I mean, part of the reason why I have a lot of IKEA stuff is because I've moved around so many times. I find myself buying the same bits of furniture every place I've lived in. What I'm saying is that, you know, it doesn't require that much money. I mean, look at the refinement and the good taste in a Saab. It's just so elegant. And there's no denying that this is more tasteful than some of the most garish watches that are worth hundreds of thousands even. So, you know, it doesn't require a lot of money. Understatement is always a little bit better. Stick to the classics and always make a consistent effort to refine one's taste, whether we're talking wine, opera, whatever it is, music, food, foie gras, whatever it is, it has to be a constant thing. So refining one's taste is definitely my number 5. So moving on, my 4th point is got to be travel. Now, travel for me has probably changed my life more than anything else. I mean, I met my wife abroad when I was studying in Florence. I've lived in Spain, I've lived in France, I've lived in the United Kingdom, all over the place. I've lived in, and of course, in the United States. It has enriched my life beyond any education and beyond any school program, beyond anything. It really has. From exploring the Aztec pyramids of Mexico to the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, even quite simple things like taking a wooden train through the jungles of Costa Rica. It was an experience that will stay with me for all of my life, and it's something that it makes you more of an interesting, well-rounded individual. You can talk about these things and you can share these experiences. I look back now on my earlier life, living in all these wonderful cultural centers, and it just seems like a fairy tale. Don't get me wrong, it's not the lifestyle of the rich and famous. A lot of the times I was absolutely broke and had to sleep on sofas of many friends and almost hitchhike my way from A to B, and sometimes it got a bit scary. But traveling really, I cannot stress enough what a world it opens up for you. It really expands your horizons beyond anything. It shapes and it inspires and gives you something to think about, priceless memories. You understand the world more than reading any book, honestly, is getting out there. I mean, there are some amazing books, of course, but nothing beats the real experience of traveling and tasting and smelling and meeting people. And it's changed my life beyond anything. It really has. From the white rooftops of Santorini to the beautiful towers of San Gimignano, the lovely clock in Rouen, the astronomical clock in Rouen that really made me fall in love with the moon phase, to the northern hills of the Lake District, even Las Vegas. I mean, trashy as it is, you can get something from it. You can't really, like Socrates always said, you can never fully judge or appreciate a place until you've lived an equal amount of time outside of it. One of my things that just repeats in my head, really does, you can't really knock it until you tried it, and it just gives you a better understanding of what's really going on in the world. And I've met so many wonderful friends and people that I can just ring up and I can go. I got somewhere to stay in the south of France or in Catalonia or Scotland. I cannot stress how wonderful and rewarding traveling is, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Take the risk, sell that second Rolex and go for a 10-week trek across South America or Central America, wherever, Asia, doesn't matter. It will benefit your life in ways very little things do. So travel definitely is my number 4. Moving on, number 3, and this kind of goes into travel a little bit, and that is speaking another language. If you do not speak more than one language, you're really kind of closing your mind to not only literature and art and culture from other nations and cultures and places. There's so much out there, when you speak another language, and mio italiano fa veramente schifo. It was my first language, but I forget a hell of a lot of it because I'm not living with Italians. Well, the Italians I live here, they're Sicilian, they speak totally different, it's dialect, it's very different. Sometimes it's like they're speaking another language. But after a couple of months back in Italy, I'm fluent again. But what has not changed is my understanding. I watch the Italian news every single day. It's for a very specific reason. Prospettiva, perspective. When you speak another language, and you watch the news or you read the newspaper of another language, never forget that whatever newspaper, whatever news channel, whatever you're watching, they have an agenda. usually in cahoots with their government or a particular party or an ideology or whatever, right? So if I'm watching the BBC, it's the BBC's point of view, okay? Nobody is objective in media, okay? But when you watch the news in French, when you watch the news in Spanish, when you watch the news from Hong Kong or Beijing, wherever, it doesn't matter what that other language is, you see the other side of the coin, the other side of the story, because the truth of everything is always in the middle. It's always in that grey area. It's never, nobody has the absolute, 100% truth. I mean, you're very naive if you think so. So, prospettiva, perspective. Quando vedi la storia con un'altra prospettiva, con un'altra lingua, puoi capire so much more. You can understand so much more. I cannot stress to you how useful this has been. It gives you a one-up between you and everybody else, because you're a little bit more clued in. When I see a news report and then I see the same thing on Italian news, on French news, on German news, and then on British news, the truth is always in the middle there. Not only that, enables you to understand cinema, people from other cultures. You open a whole new world, and this is integral to being a gentleman. Or to being a well-rounded individual. Understand as much as you can to open up your mind and to see things from all different kinds of perspectives. Not enough of these vlogs and channels talk about this. They don't tell you these things. And if you don't speak another language, it's never too late to try. Italian was my first language, and then because I was born in London, but I spent the first 4 years of my life in Cordovado in the north of Italy near Venice, and it's a beautiful town with friends of ours, and Italian will always be in my soul. And a couple of months with my family back in Italy and I'm fluent again like that, but I cannot stress to you what a wondrous, life-changing, inspirational thing it has been for me, and really assists me in having a fuller, more enriched life. I used to almost be ashamed of my Italian heritage, especially with a British class system, dealing with my British side, which are very, frightfully, awfully, but I've learnt to embrace it and to take from each culture and take the best of it, and that's what you must do. And if you don't speak another language, it's never too late to learn. It's a wonderful thing. You can meet so many more people. It's a wonderful, and when you travel with the language, you understand that place to a deeper, more profound level, and that really can help you. Okay, so moving on. So we discussed language, we've discussed traveling, we've discussed refining one's taste. So number 2. So what's next? Well, number 2, very, very obvious, and that is manners. Now, I've got to say, my manners are not the best in the world, but what is important is I always try to be respectful. I always say please and thank you. It's very, very important. I try and respect one's elders. Basic. It's a thing of respect. If something doesn't feel right, then usually it's bad manners, okay? Try to treat everybody as I would like to be treated. Extremely basic. We got to make the distinction between manners and etiquette, okay? Etiquette is not absolutely necessary. If you're going to a white tie or black tie event or an opera or a really posh tea party at Buckingham Palace, obviously etiquette is going to assist you and going to make you look better, right? No doubt about it. But it's not necessary for everyday life. Etiquette really was, and there was a fantastic podcast by David Mitchell, the British comedian and writer, who I've got a few of his books, very funny chap. But he did an amazing podcast for, I think it was Radio 4, talking about manners, especially in today's age where the online world, so to speak, right? He made that distinction between manners and etiquette. Etiquette was really kind of introduced by the upper classes with the introduction of the bourgeoisie and the industrialists. There was more social mobility within the classes, and suddenly people from the middle classes and even working classes started to have more money, and they started to climb the social ladder. So the upper classes devised all these very esoteric, stringent rules of how to eat and how to behave, and that were just ridiculous, almost like a minefield to try and separate them from the bourgeoisie. I mean, we're talking about the aristocrats, right? So certain behaviors of of how to speak in court, and what knife and fork, and all this rest of it. The truth of the matter is, most of it is rubbish. Most of it is absolute, you don't need to know that stuff. And trust me, when you meet very, very kind of well-to-do, especially at Christmas or family events, I meet frightfully posh people, lady and lord, blah, 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 and all the rest of it. And to be honest, they have the worst manners. I mean, they say please and thank you, but they're swearing and eating like pigs, so it really was, etiquette was basically, it's a very complicated thing that was invented to try and keep people, those in the bourgeoisie, those new money, those nouveau riche industrialists, keep them in their place, so it wasn't really, some of it is good and useful, like the etiquette of riding a horse or hunting. Those things obviously are not fabricated, but a lot of it was just made up just to keep people in their place, a system to try and for the real upper classes to appear more well-to-do than they really are. So back to what I'm saying. Have a look at the podcast with David Mitchell, really good stuff. To get back to manners, now there's a great expression of manners maketh the man, and they certainly do, but you could have the best manners of all time. You could know all the most obscure etiquette rules. You can have Debrett's book. The Debrett's book I got for Christmas. It's a really good guide to etiquette, how to eat, how to behave, all these things. You could have that memorized, but if you're not cultured, if you're not well-traveled, if you're not a decent human being and you have really great manners don't maketh the man, in that case. I think it's much more important to actually be a decent human being with good manners than just having good manners and being an absolute scoundrel, an absolute rotter, So in that regard, manners maketh the man. It is true to an extent, but you have to be a man first, right? You have to be somebody of decent moral standing and integrity and respect, and because otherwise, being a gentleman and everything, you could have the best Savile Row suit, you can have all that stuff, it just goes out the window. It doesn't mean anything if you're not a decent respectful, cultured human being. All the million videos you see on YouTube with these gentleman channels of how to tie a tie, how to do your shoelaces, doesn't mean anything. Honestly, if you don't have basic respect, integrity, and so we're talking beyond manners, really. Manners are great, but you have to be a person of good moral character to begin with, of substance to begin with. I think we need to take it back and kind of really understand what manners mean. Let's not say manners, let's say respect, because I think that is a great universal word that applies to all cultures, not just the British upper classes or the French, the court of Louis XIV in France. Respect, decency, being kind, being generous, please and thank you, and all the rest of it are great, but as long as you have those core principles in there first, right? As long as you have those core principles first. Anyway, so let's go on to my number one, and you'll probably be surprised at this, but this is the biggest misconception, and that is an appreciation of arts and culture. Art really is the most universal language. It transcends all ethnicities, all nations, all language barriers, opens horizons. It explores things about the human condition that science and all the rest of it can never penetrate. Art really makes a person well-rounded, whether it's an appreciation of opera or cinema. It doesn't, it could be a Guy Ritchie movie or it could be the most obscure Antonioni. It doesn't really matter, as long as you're open to it all and you experience it all. You know what upsets me the most about these gentlemanly lifestyle vlogs and blogs and Instagrams? They put too much emphasis on style, right? But yet they can't tell the difference between a Mondrian and a Modigliani or a Botticelli and Matisse. Appreciation of the arts is integral, from architecture to cooking, to everything. It's the most integral thing of being a well-rounded person, of being a gentleman, is a knowledge of this. It's an appreciation. And it goes back to what we were talking about, refining one's taste. Art really is the barometer of society. Okay, and this is a quote. I forget. I think it was a TED lecture, but it was fantastic quote. Art is the barometer of society. I love that. Absolutely love that. It reflects who we are more profoundly than anything else ever existed. It tells stories. It represents our imagination, and there's nothing more powerful than the human imagination. Art does all of this. It is a testament to that power of the imagination. It explores things beyond words, beyond science, beyond understanding, beyond the realms of all our senses. It engages dialogue. It engages the viewer. You know, I've never forget seeing this portrait of Van Gogh at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, and being profoundly moved almost to tears. And it was just a portrait of him looking out, and there was so much pain and anguish and emotion in that picture. I could never explain my feeling, but it moved me, and beyond any film or piece of music, it did something to me. Some people may not like it, as we're talking about taste, but that picture transcends all cultures, all people. It speaks to everybody. And I'll never forget that experience. And it really, I don't want to sound cheesy, but it changed my life. Music can do that. Music, art, a poem, literature can really do that. It feeds our soul. It makes us who we are. It is what it is to be human at the end of the day. Our biggest achievements haven't been going to the moon. Our biggest achievements were the Sistine Chapel, the Picasso's Guernica, or Mahler's Fifth Symphony, or these were our biggest achievements. Wagner's Tristan and Isolde. I'm named after that chord, the Tristan chord. That's what I'm named after. It tells the story of humanity, of our history. It's timeless. It influences our clothes, our love for watches, everything. Art and culture is absolutely integral. You can look at all the style blogs and all the gentlemanly this and gentlemanly that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter the suit on your back, or your John Lobs, or your Churches, or whatever it is, Crockett and Jones, whatever it is that you got on your feet. If you put a Philistine in the fancy shoes and fancy suit, it doesn't make them a gentleman. It makes them just a well-dressed Philistine. It's up to you to change yourself, to change your life with these things. Your understanding of the world will be so much deeper. And trust me, you're at a meeting with your boss, or talking to somebody you're interested in, like a date or something, and you're able to connect about a particular Polanski movie from the 70s, or Henry Moore sculpture that you both absolutely are enamored with, and you make that connection, it's worth it. Really is worth it. And you'll find this is what life is worth living for. I don't really live for a career or for me, the appreciation of all these beautiful things, beautiful books and beautiful cinema, and it's what life's all about. Discussing the cinematography in a Kurosawa film, like the video I did with the Spring Drive Seiko, the Grand Seiko. My understanding of that watch, I hate to say it, was a little bit more profound, a little bit more in depth than it normally would, because I understood Japanese culture a little bit more because of reading their literature, because of being exposed to their films, because of being able to meet Japanese people at art school, or going to school with them, or on my travels, in the most obscure places. It changes one's life. So these really are my 5 points. And guys, please don't forget to add your queries, comments, questions, all the rest of it, and your own suggestions. This is just my top 5. I could go on, I could make 100 things of life hacks to make you a better, well-rounded person and a gentleman. But these are mine that I think have been neglected by the mainstream, especially in this social media age. So I'm going to leave it there. Please don't forget to add your comments, thoughts, and your own suggestions, all the rest of it down in the comments. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. It really does help me, so please hit that like button. Thank you very, very much for watching. And as always, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.